You have no idea how much I'm willing to pay to see you in Versace right now.
I think I have a sweatshirt. I have a long sleeve in Versace that 20 years ago.
Oh, I just, with all my imagination, I still cannot.
I had a lot of hair back then, you know.
So did I. Um, at first, I didn't understand you picked this topic because last week you talked about dukkha, the first of
Noble
the
truth.
Four Noble Truths, and
Hmm.
it would be very logical for you to then talk about the second Noble
Hmm.
Truth, but you didn't. Instead, you took a step back and talk about disassociation. So again, if one were to talk about the 12 steps to overcome addiction,
Hmm.
in a way, being overwhelmed by past trauma is another form of addiction. We just cannot
Hmm.
let go.
Hmm.
And the very first step is about letting go. It's about confronting, actually, not letting go. It's about confronting. It's about finally accepting that you have an issue, right?
Acceptance.
Acceptance, yeah, acceptance. So, but acceptance is not part of our DNA. It's not actually it's not survival. Survival is dissociation,
Yeah.
right? So, human beings' natural behavior after trauma, even if it's acute trauma and not long-term trauma like you're talking about, our first instinct, our first reaction, our first is a survival, and survival requires disassociation.
Yeah.
You know, so I think what you talk about today is actually very natural. We all do that.
We all do.
We all
That's a
do that.
problem.
Yeah, we all do that. And so it's kind of interesting that in order to get real help, following the 12 steps, for example, requires that you accept your trauma. That's the first
Hmm.
thing. Now, you mentioned that people who have suffered trauma, one form or the other, they have different behavior. And I really like the one where you says fawning is one. And it's actually the most common one because
Hmm.
freezing or avoiding, you don't see them. So, uh, but you see a lot of people that, they laugh louder than anyone else. They react, faster than anyone else to someone else's joke. You know,
Yeah.
they run to if you need anything, they'll run to get you. That's very typical. And you mentioned how for many of the students out there, we might not have a chance to talk about Venerable Diong's past, his childhood. So he was born in Vietnam. He was basically the first generation of Vietnamese Chinese. There were a lot of immigrants back then. This is before. Actually, your father went to Vietnam before World War II, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
and
after World War II.
after World War II, was it
Hmm.
after Japanese surrender?
Yeah, because he
Okay,
was not he was born 1935 and he was 13 when he escaped China to Vietnam. So it was 1948 that he arrived in
oh,
Vietnam.
okay. So it was after end of the World War II, but it was a time when there was tremendous amount of turmoil in China, where
Famine.
famines and all that. And so
Hmm.
he was not born in Vietnam. Your mom was
No.
born in Vietnam, but he was not. Yeah.
Hmm.
So typical. We invented a word, a phrase this weekend, and we call it re-anchored citizens. Re-anchored citizen.
Oh, really?
Now, this
Okay.
is very interesting because most people would think about immigrants who eventually become naturalized citizens, and particularly the one that are doing very well and are contributing. We think of them as people who are, you know, on their own, decided that they would leave one place of comfort to a place of better comfort, right? But then there's another group of immigrants actually wasn't thinking about even coming to a different country. They would have been happy where they were, but because of war, because of turmoil, famine, because of all kinds of reasons, they had to leave, and they had to leave in the face of great danger to
Yeah.
themselves and to the family. And then
Mm-hmm.
they eventually landed in a new country, and they have to re-anchor themselves and become prosperous. So that's a very interesting statement of immigrants. You and I am not. My family came not with a lot of comfort, but we weren't escaping from war. But you were, right?
Oh yeah.
So there were a lot of people like you that had to re-anchor into a new land. And in a way, your father was like that. He was escaping famine
Yeah.
and poverty. And so he comes with a lot of traumatic experience,
Yeah.
and and you were his punching bag because you didn't
It,
have anybody protecting you. That was a problem, is that it could have been anybody else. It could have been distributed among your siblings, but no, you were his oldest son, and you didn't have a protector. Had he just imagine had he do that to your younger sister, you would come out and protect her, but you didn't have someone to protect you.
no, he actually did to all seven of us.
All
He
seven.
was abusive to
So
my
he
mom
was he
too.
was equal opportunity abuser.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Okay, so but in any case, you said that you grew up with very little self-esteem because you were always questioning about why me, why this
Yeah.
life, and
Mm-hmm.
no one was helping you. No one was had the neighbors didn't help because that wasn't the
No.
culture. That was not
In
the
the
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you guys know out there in the Vietnamese culture, people would stand and watch
they
you
would stand
getting
and
beat
watch.
up.
Yeah, you were actually
Yeah.
entertainment for the
Yeah.
community. Look at him! Look at him!
Yeah.
So you grew up with a lot of that, and like you said, you had to react to it, deal with it, and your survival instinct is that you want to be liked.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be liked, and then I like the passage that you have where Buddha says that a journey is about finding the inner self, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually, in a way, kind of related to the 12 steps as well, because in the 12 steps, in the original 12 steps, it was given up to the higher power.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Buddhism, it wasn't someone else that you give up to. You know, it wasn't a deity. It's not a deity. It's not a creator God. It's not a personal God. It is you.
It's
It
my
is your
own.
inner self that
Yep.
if you could somehow confront your demon and understand where it comes from. And as you said, karma, trauma is karma, even
Mm-hmm.
though we said that, let's not let trauma become a karma, but trauma is a karma. And karma is an action. It affects how you think, how you act, because and so Buddhist teaching is that, well, then you have to confront it. You have to learn how to not let your trauma become your karma, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you were attracted to that teaching, and eventually, after you decided that you had done sufficiently well, you did all your duties as a number one son, right?
Yep.
What more do they want? You're a master in your PhD engineering plus an MBA, you know, and then you were working three jobs after you had a day job in IT, and just so that you can bring all your family over,
Mm-hmm.
and then you talk about how you were re-traumatized again after you saw your father, and he hasn't changed, and all your memory came back. And
Yep.
that's the time when you say, "Look, this is it. This is it. I got to seek my own path, right?" So I think you were attracted to Buddha's teaching, and then eventually you decided that you wanted to be a monk, but you
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to be any kind of monk. You didn't want to just live in a temple and serve the middle class,
The wealthy,
the
the wealthy
wealthy, and the
donors.
dead, or even the dead. you wanted to, because you were trying to, it was important to you to really understand. You need to find the reason for your life. Why did
The
that happen
meaning.
to you? The meaning. There had to
Yeah.
be a meaning. You couldn't just say, "Hey, that was it." Shit happens. You can't, because again, for your survival, you had to find the meaning. Why did that happen to me? That had someone. There has to be a reason for that, and so now you come to the very last step of the 12 step, which is to serve. And then the question was that what was the you know population that you can serve that would give meaning to your early childhood, your life, and so eventually you answered the calling, and of the room full of people, student sign up, but you were the only one show up,
There were
which is,
three.
oh, there were
Three
three that you
showed
show
up.
up, but first time, second time, only you.
Yeah.
So then that was the new life, and that was for you more than serve a particular population. In this case, is incarcerated. You were actually using the opportunity to resolve your own conflict,
Correct. My own childhood
your
trauma.
own child, and that is coming back to the opposite of disassociation,
Correct.
which is to accept your past and actually helping others. You know, the last steps of the 12th step is to serve others, and you're doing exactly that. You're doing exactly
Yeah.
that. Now, you're coming up on the end of October, and there's a film festival in San Quentin, and you mentioned about 10 movies that are made uh, with the common topic about the incarcerated, and you are the subject of one. And can the name of the this movie is called Road to, what's
The
the name
road
of
to
it?
Dharma. The
The
road
Road
to
to
Dharma.
Dharma. The Road to Dharma. So for those of you out there, now I cannot post the link, so it's actually on a YouTube channel. And the name of the video is a very short video. The name of the video is called The Road to Dharma. And of course, Venerable Hong is the subject matter. And it was interesting to, well, first of all, it was amazing that he was able to gain access to the prison and was able to. Oh no, he didn't. No, he did. He did.
Yeah. The
He actually
women's prison.
filmed. He filmed when you were in the female prison,
Yeah.
and then there
In
was
the
something
women.
else that was outside the prison. These are all the returned citizens, and they were
Correct.
talking about you. And I think the thing that I remember was that they were very appreciative of what you do because you did not judge. That was their word. That you weren't there to judge them. You weren't there, basically force feeding them some kind of dogma theory or whatever. You were there. You were very honest. You were there. In fact, you said yourself that you are very appreciative of them. You're very grateful of them because you are learning from them.
Yeah.
And so it was a case of mutual healing by
On both
doing
sides.
exactly the opposite of disassociation, which is to
Correct.
accept and confront
Yeah.
your past trauma. Yeah,
Here's the
yeah.
thing about what I did. I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning, but eventually, whoever that came to me, I let them be. I let them come to me. I let them share their experiences. I never asked them what they did or what happened. And then I also, as I offer mindfulness and, the Buddha's teaching, I never had any rituals. I never asked them to convert, because people inside the prison, they are at the most vulnerable position. And they could convert, I could do it, but I never did that. And that's one thing that I have, that people come to me because most of the folks who come to my visit are not Buddhist, but they accept it. They accept the Buddha's teaching, they practice meditation, and that's what matters, and that helped them.
Yeah, and it's basically, not putting words in their mouth, but they basically felt that you were authentic.
I am,
You're
I was,
you're authentic, and that, you were able to relate to them, and most important of all is that you weren't judging them, and you're not
Hmm.
going to use their openness and their honesty against them.
Yeah.
Now that takes a lot
Hmm.
of work.
Oh yeah.
That takes a
And
lot
I
of work.
speak at that
Yeah,
level, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So I think to kind of again, I didn't understand the importance of today's topic, but now I do, because most of us who suffer from trauma one way or the other, for our own protection, for our own survival, we have to build this wall to
I'll
protect
put on a
ourselves,
mask
put on the mask,
and go on. Hmm.
and go on. This is the only way we can survive. And so, by not accepting our past, then we cannot confront our past. And then, ironically, by avoiding a past, we become enslaved to our past,
Yeah.
right? And so dukkha and disassociation is exactly that. It's speaking about that. It's the entry to the 12 steps.
Hmm.
Doing learning how not to disassociate is the entry for the first step. You know. So I thank you very much. Thank you very much for today's topic, today's discussion. I'm sure everyone out there feel the same way.